Okay, hello. We are going to paint this nocturne scene. This pretty house by the water. I think this was in Little Neck Bay. Okay, so as you can see, we jumped right into the wash. To paint something like this, you need to have a dark blue underpainting. Now, having said that, this blue that I have here is not blue enough. And I went pretty dark. Um, so just word to the wise, if you guys want to do a little less overpainting, get this a little darker. A little. Almost like a half value darker and bluer if you can. The colors I used here were Prussian blue, ultramarine blue, and cerulean blue. It was like a mixture of all three. Um, I wanted it sort of like on the warmer side. Okay, so here what I'm doing is I'm working in the sky and the clouds. That's actually a moon shot, a moonlit sky coming through clouds. This picture, truth be told, is a sort of a composition, photo composition of a picture I took of that house, and then on basically a noonday situation, and a picture of a moonlit sky with clouds that I took on a separate outing, and I just love the way that looked all together. All right, so let's see. Um, yeah, so now massing in the big forms here, you can see that I'm just trying to get big shapes in here. Um, I am not really going for any specific detail, just big color washes. Now this is extremely uh, contrasted. Again, if you go a little darker in the preliminary, the first wash, you may not have to do this or get this as dark. So I know it's I probably should have done a little study of this, but I just do an overwash. You'll see how that's going to transpire, and yes, and there it is. So we keep watching. I'm filling in most of the background. Um, we see that I'm trying to just gain a little bit more contrast. And I think I just lose that building completely as the painting progresses. Now, as far as the trees are concerned, I'm using a lot of different things. I'm using ultramarine blue, burnt umber, sap green, or actually not sap green, it was viridian green to keep it a little bit more metallic. Um, it's interesting because at this stage, it looked quite nice, but I realized again I didn't go dark enough, so my lights are more kind of, they're set up more for a environment where there's more light, and so that's the thing. When you don't do a preliminary sketch, you just have to add more washes. And I don't mind the way it came out. I think even if we did do less washes, probably would have been the same. I think if I painted this again, I would probably go for that more spontaneous look, keeping some of those shapes a little bit bigger. I get very subtle in the water. And with this painting, being that it's a dark painting, we had to go a little bit, actually add more of the opaque colors, or just add opaque colors. Okay, so I'm adding in colors that we will see in the end. I'm again setting up for that back, the next wash. And just letting the painting, the paint drip right? If there were elements there that would have been broken up, you know, like maybe a fence or something, you could show um, basically using the same technique. It's just kind of drawing the shapes so that they represent something. Um, Now, because I didn't get the original value, I have to go over, you'll see that I go over this house quite a few times. And, well, you'll see as it progresses. But I'm happy with the big washes. I know we get this big spill there. That's okay. That's a part of watercolor painting. Now, that one, I should have probably just left that in, but that was bugging me. uh, but that's okay. It is resolved. You don't see it in the final painting. Again, because everything is still on the lighter side. So what's happening is this painting looks like very different. It could be a snow scene at this point, right? Because we're only really seeing some of the top forms, and there's some white elements of the painting, highly contrasted. So it's kind of interesting how these things turn about. Now, um, you'll see that the paint and the pigment get separated, okay, in the trees just behind the house, in the water. Actually, that brown area is actually water, is the water, okay? It's reflecting off of, well, it's actually, that water was very shallow, so it's actually reflecting through the bottom, where the bottom contours of that waterway were showing through. So here I go again, one of many paintings, just because I really do have to get this super, super dark. And yeah, so you'll see that it gets darker and darker. I try to keep a little bit of that window in there, um, just to kind of give it a feel that there's something there. But I go back later on and I paint that in opaque. Again, we want to have that feeling of, you know, artificial light inside the dwellings, right? To really bolster the feeling that this is twilight, that this is a nocturne. I mean, just this morning I went out with my kayak at, you know, before, boy, I think I was on the water at 4:30 with the light, but it was still nighttime, and the moon was so bright. Although there were no clouds, I've been in a situation like that where even if there were clouds, it really, the moon is extremely bright. When there's no other light, the moon's glow is just, it's just beautiful. I mean, everything has like a bluish, greenish tinge to it, which I tried to get in this painting, or at least just that feeling. Right now, I could have gotten darker with the back, you know, with the foliage in the back, the trees. But I decided against it for a couple of reasons. I got the contrast I wanted on the roof of the dwelling, um, but that's all I wanted. I didn't want any more. I didn't want I didn't want to go too dark. There is going to be another. Having said that, there's going to be another layer to this. Now, some of these things that I'm doing now, I just wish I could have just left. They were really nice, but again, I'm just trying to go down and down and down with my washes, and down in value, I should say. And you'll see at some point I do turn the painting around. A crazy thing happened just around now. My computer is in my studio. I'm actually looking at the picture I'm painting from the picture, and all of a sudden it just toppled over. It was on a book. Somehow, the I don't know what happened. Maybe I pulled on something, and the book just came. The book, the whole computer. It's a 27-inch iMac. Came just crashing down, pouring my coffee all over my keyboard and the mouse. It was a real mess. So you'll see The picture actually changes a little bit at some point, I think right about now. Um, and boy, there was some expletives thrown around at that point. Um, I think it's after I do the sky again, not sure. But right now, this painting is looking really good on its own. You know, if it wasn't a nocturne, I probably would have left it alone. But we have to paint a nocturne. So this is what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm going to go over everything, get the sky a little darker, get all my areas a little darker, richer. And that really did it. Okay, so that it happened just after that. So now this is a new video. I'm coming back in. I had my lunch, straightened up the studio. It was really bad. And now, okay, so the darks, you're probably wondering what colors I'm using. Well, for the trees, again, burnt umber, ultramarine blue, all the ones I use constantly, my go-to colors. Ultramarine blue, burnt umber. Here, instead of using sap green, would have been a little warmer, I was using viridian green. And just different variations, keeping it on the cool side. Now here, yeah, I'm painting in some green, but that green is, it's just really to break up the blue color. Would that be that green outside? Probably not, but I wanted to have just a little bit of just a feeling that there was some light coming in. Could it be ambient light from the clouds? Um, and not that green would totally disappear. It wouldn't. Um, so it's really just for variety, especially right near the water. Okay, I wanted a little bit of color contrast there. Um, Now what's happening now, and this is what you have to be careful of when we do too many washes. What happens is the areas that we're painting over and over and over again, they almost get clogged. There's a point where a watercolor, I mean, it'll keep taking it, and it'll just sit on the surface. But you have to be very careful because the more paint that we put down, what happens is it creates this reservoir. So if you go to work wet into wet, you have to be careful. You can actually obliterate everything you've done because now the um, the washes are so saturated that they almost become volatile, meaning that anything that you touch, a little water, would actually bring them right back into solution. All right, so now I'm foreseeing that there was going to be a little reflection from the windows back there. Um, would that really happen? Probably not. They're probably too far back, but for the picture, I think it needs it. So we took a little artistic license and made so that the house was a little closer to the water, which in reality it was pretty set back. It's on the water, but not that close to the water. So here at some point, I think I just paint over that shape again. There's a little, I don't know if it's part of the same house, whatever structure that is. It's a little, actually, it's a whole different color, so it's probably not. But just trying to get the general shape here. Now I'm going in and I am going to spray that area with water. I believe I'm using a spray. If I'm not, yep, there it is. That's a little, you can almost see it, okay? Now, I sprayed it. You'll notice every once in a while, you'll see like a little spray burst out. What I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to get that water to seep down. That's all I'm doing. Nothing special. Trying to get that area dark, getting the tree shapes and giving them some kind of interest. I know I still have to add trunks and stuff later, but you want to try to get as much variation at this point. And how you do that is that you add some dark tones, just like I'm doing now. Try to spot them a little bit. Unfortunately, because of the camera, I'm working on a severe It's probably more than a 45-degree angle right now. So that's why I had to turn this painting upside down so that I can paint the tree shapes. And now I'm going in and I'm trying to just get some interest in the tree shapes in the back, okay? Now notice I say tree shapes, I don't say trees. I'm just trying to get uh, big masses, okay? So here I'm drying the picture off. Um, and I'm happy with the contrast, but I do go darker again on the house. I probably could have stopped at this point, but I think I do one more. I'm not sure. Maybe I don't. No, I do. So there it is. I think this is probably, I don't know, I would say the fourth time I painted this. So yeah, this is just, again, not being able to get that base tone correct. Um, because what would have happened, and I might even do a little quick sketch just to see how easy, and I know it would be easy. These are the things that we do, and we don't necessarily, we regret it because, well, we didn't see it through. We didn't test it out. So, but on the whole, I'm not completely, I don't hate the painting. I think it probably could have had a little bit more spontaneity had that first layer been darker. Okay, um, so when you guys do this, I'd like to see your paintings being a lot bluer. Don't worry about going too dark with the blue. Just make sure your sky looks like a sky. Everything else is just going to be the sand, the water, okay? Everything is going to be tinged by that blue, as you can see in the picture. Um, Now this is this is a little slight angle, so we're seeing a little bit of that area, just a little bit on an angle. Just now here, okay, so I'm already at the stage of dropping in some trees. Here we go. There's a lone pine tree there. Okay. Another reason why I wanted to go a little lighter on the background is because I wanted these tree shapes to show through. If I got too dark, what would happen is that we would lose the focus on the house. The house would have just kind of melted into the whole background. So in a way, I'm glad I didn't go too dark with the trees. And here I'm taking a little, this is a little rigger brush. I'm just adding tiny little details now. These are basically accents, okay? So I'm trying to tighten things up so my contrast is a little stronger. What is this I'm using? It's not black. It's burnt umber and ultramarine blue, right? That's all I use in watercolor. Occasionally I use some Payne's gray, but for the most part, I like to control the temperature of my dark tones. So now, believe it or not, I'm not using white here. That is the pure chroma of the paint coming out. That was cadmium yellow and permanent green. Okay, that's all that was. There was no pro white. Pro white does come later on, but not yet. All right, so I'm seeing that there are some other little tree shapes, little shapes in here. Just trying to show some detail without getting too illustrative. That too is the green. And here I'm actually working out some of the rock formations. And you'll see that, I don't know, I think I probably walked over to, no, I'm still working at those darks. I really want to get that, you know, that area right next to the water. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on there. Subtle, I think there's a little seawall that breaks up. Now this is actually that cerulean blue that I have, and it does have a little bit of an opaque quality to it. So it works well when you have to drop in a blue right over a very warm area. All right, what I just did there was I just kind of, we were talking about the volatility, or I should say, um, well, it is volatile because it, if you wet it, if you put a drop of water, it's gonna. But that area in the foreground, I did get something. There was a little mark, and I went to erase it with a wet paper towel. And as you can see, I picked up a lot of paint. Now, if that was one wash, you wouldn't even see that. Okay, so it's unstable at this point, which is something we have to be aware of. Okay, so now adding more little rocks. As you can see now, yeah, I am. I think I did get a little bit of the pro white at this point, and I just have to add a lot of small embellishments. Painting like this, mind you, when it is this dark, what we have to do is we have to go back and pull up some of the highlights. Little things, little, a sheen on the roof, right? Little things like this. These are the things that'll really make the painting pop. And now it's starting to come more into focus. But yet, I'm trying not to add too many little minute details. And I think now I go for the pro white. If you see a very bright color, then that's what I did. There it is. So I'm working in the windows, right? And here we go. Boom. Just by the addition of that warmth, all of a sudden, it went from a nebulous noonday light, okay, with clouds, to a twilight, okay, or a nocturne. All right, so we feel that warmth that's inside and all the coolness. This is something that you have to have in a painting like this because you need to show the variety of light, okay, meaning you have a lot of white, a lot of coolness. You have to offset it at least in some part, okay, not too big an area, but just a little. This is now the house. It's on a third. It's definitely the focal point without a doubt, and now even more so. Could I have gone a little lighter in the shadows? Maybe, but I like the fact that it is dark. If this was even in noonday, okay, and how do I know this? Because when Steven Spielberg shot Jaws, he filmed it every day at 12 o'clock. Why did he do that? Because the moon is overhead, okay? So so it affects moonlight. So all they have to do is drop a filter on. All right, so here we go. Backing up to what I just did, I put a little bit of the same color of the window in the water area, and then I sprayed it with water to let it drip. Okay, very important. Okay, because you don't want. Now here you'll see that I kind of fiddle around a lot. Now what am I trying to do here? Well, I'm just trying to get the feeling of the water. It seems a little too hard now. Like the background is very atmospheric. I want to make sure now that these little bits of highlight I'm seeing are just maybe where the light is hitting some of these areas. I'm just trying to get a feeling of like where the water meets the dry sand, right? There are these, you have these little, I mean, it's not big, it's not waves at all, it's just little rivulets, okay? But they're picking up the light in a different way. So these are the things that we have to kind of concern ourselves when we're finishing off the painting. Okay. Yeah, now that one I didn't like. I think I erased it out and then I go back in again. there were these little areas where the light was hitting that roof surface. Maybe it was a tin, I don't know, maybe it was flashing or something. It was just hitting the light just in a certain way. And and that's why adding those little droplets really, they do so much. I mean, just with a touch, a tiny little touch of paint of opaque or lighter value, really makes the painting come alive. And basically, that's all I'm doing. I'm just really going around, accenting those little bits of light. Now here, this is that's the reflection of the clouds in the water, or at least it was my attempt to get it that way, um, because there was some sort of a glare, if you will. And I think at the end, I do go back and I spray it over. Now I did see a little bit of a cool tone in here, so actually something other than the cerulean was a little, just a hint of purple. I don't know where that came from. Maybe the sky. I'm not sure, but it definitely worked in this picture. All right, here I go with the splattering technique. A lot of it actually, the next, so the next step, these are, you know, little rocks and things. This also goes through some changes here. Again, I'm trying to get the foreground a little more subtle. Could it have gotten a little darker? Yeah, maybe. But you can definitely see some of the just that feeling of light there. Now the sand is represented by the blue, and I do go over that again I think one more time, just to give it a little bit more little color. Now what I'm also doing is I'm trying to find some areas that I can drop in some texture, and you can see I'm taking my big brush. I think it's the 18, and I'm just running it across, just trying to get, I don't know, just the feeling of, I don't know, maybe it's seaweed, dried seaweed on the shoreline, just texture, really. I'm not going for any specific thing, but just variations of tone that I didn't get originally. So yeah, so this is actually just, I'm scumbling semi-opaque paint over the painting, and then I'm drying it. What the beauty of this technique is that what happens is those opaque layers, they really just get engulfed by the pigment that's on the paper. So in that respect, you don't really see it that much. It's not like you can see, I mean, these lines, obviously you can. I mean, they're pretty substantial. They're more opaque. They're concentrated. We're talking about the white, those little white lines there, and and here I see, you know, there's some intense blues coming from the sky, and yeah. So just accenting, trying to make something. I was breaking up that shape I wasn't too crazy about. I think I aborted that or changed the shape there a little bit, not sure. Now this is another, again, more water washes, right? This was not opaque. It was basically a little wash running across that moon reflection in that little tide pool. And that's what that was. That's why they were so hard to articulate, because they were almost like they were changes of value and color over the sand. Now here I go and adding some more color, trying to break up that shape into some variation. I probably should have stopped at that point. Now here I'm adding a little bit more of the white. This is supposed to be a little bit of glare on the surface of the sand. Maybe the sand was a little wet, who knows. But there was definitely a glare there. Now here, that's it. That's what I was looking for. All right, that little glare, I just took my my bottle spray, and just basically power washed it out. Okay. Now here I noticed there was a little bit more of the warmth kind of trickling down into that area of the water. Now you noticed how that when I lifted up that, used my paper towel, I actually lifted up some of the paint underneath. That's what I was talking about how earlier, how the paint can be very unstable when there's so many layers to it. Okay, not to say that it's a bad thing. It's just it changes the texture. Um, but when we paint dark, these are the things that we have to contend with. So just be careful not to splash water on the dark areas, because that would give you these little wet stains, uh, wet marks. And here we are. I'm going around with a little single-edged razor blade, picking out little tiny highlights in the picture. Um, just trying to accent little areas, just so like there's a little bit of line coming out. Now this is, there we go. So this is the Unveiling, and here it is. Okay guys, have a great day. Enjoy the painting. See you next week. Bye now.